Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. Hey everybody, Chad Madden here, and today I have a very special guest. Super excited for you guys to hear this practice owner's story. But our guest today is Deepak Sharma. Deepak is a doctor of physiotherapy. He is in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. He's a private practice owner, probably one of the fastest ascensions that I've ever seen in terms of a practice owner filling up. It's in a very unique situation in terms of an economic environment, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But welcome to the call here, Dr. Deepak Sharma.
Hey, thanks, Chad. Just a little correction there. So in Canada, you're not allowed to use doctor unless you are a PhD.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do have a DPT, but it's you're not allowed to.
I have a master's in orthopedic physical therapy. Yes,
okay.
But I'm not allowed to use doctor.
Sorry.
No.
Bad research on my part. Okay. So you're a physiotherapist. You have a private practice. Can you tell us a little bit about when you opened up, how you ended up in, a little bit of your background, and how you ended up in Edmonton?
Yeah, so it's a long story. I'll try and summarize it up quick. But yeah, so I opened up in my practice back in 2018 with a lot of hurdles and all of that. We were supposed to open in February of 2018, but ended up having a break-in when everything was ready, and we were literally ready to open in a week or so. We had a bad break-in that costed us around $65,000 in repairs and everything, and pushed our dealing with all the insurance companies and stuff like that. Pushed the opening of the clinic instead of February till July. So July 22nd, 2018 is when we opened the practice. So after all the insurance hurdles and during that phase, when you're coming out of a job, as an employee, you're working somewhere else for many years, you don't necessarily have a lot of savings. So whatever savings you have, so during that period, to get the things fixed and repair again and all, so we end up using all our savings and also because nobody have at least I don't have at least $65,000 laying just like that. So end up using all the line of credits and all of that.
Yes. I was very broke when we opened up in private practice. And just to clarify, you had a break-in. So somebody broke into your to open space. They ruined
the place. So the idea was that I feel that we have a next door pharmacy. On the right hand side we have a pharmacy and a medical clinic, and on the left hand side we have an optometric practice. So apparently they were trying to steal some drugs and all of that, and pharmacies are the hot spots for burglaries. And they basically kind of came in from the back door, somehow damaged all the side walls towards the pharmacy to kind of get into there, and then damaged the wall towards the optometric side to steal some glasses and all. So it was really, really big damage. So then we had to ask all our suppliers to hold on to the stuff, and they charged us for their storage fee and all of that. They have to keep the products or equipments in their own storage, so they charged us for that. So there's a lot of financial burden at that point. But end up opening the clinic in July. But I joined Breakthrough BPTM at that point, killer marketing program, almost a year before I actually opened my practice. And again, the idea was to be well prepared and to kind of have that rocket start, what I call it, so that when I go into the practice, and I think I've heard it from you guys too, on an average a clinic takes around 20 months to become profitable or so in North America. 36 months. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So we did that in 3 months time. So we were we broke even in 3 months, and then we were profitable right after.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's back up here a little bit. So you were a physio. You're originally from India.
yeah, that's right.
You were in Edmonton. I think you had a connection with a professor
That's right.
there.
So one of my professors who taught me in school, in my undergrad, and then also in my master's. So he was from Australia, but he moved to India and then taught me there. So he later moved to Canada, and so as a when I was in India, I was unmarried bachelor. So I like to travel a lot. So I traveled quite a bit to learn different courses and all of that. So and I have some family, extended family in US. So I decided to just come there to kind of visit the family and go and visit the professor who taught us. So I was in constant contact with that professor. So I just made a small trip, came here, um, went to see him in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And he was like, "Hey, man, you're here. Why don't you just, you know, uh, like apply for the credentialing and stuff and see if you get your credits and all." So I did that, got all the credits for my education, and appeared for my exam. So this I'm talking about back in 2012 November. As I came here, like appeared for the exam. So when I landed in Edmonton, so literally my exam was in 3 days. So having so it was like a lot of issues. I couldn't pass my first exam. So just a little inside story. But literally a month later, I appeared for the second attempt and I just cleared all my exams. And so, and then I right after I moved back to India, and then like so, and I got a call from one of the employers in Edmonton that, "Hey man, I saw that you passed the exam. Would you be interested in moving to Canada?" Sure. And by the time I got married and all, moved to Edmonton with my wife.
Nice.
And
So you were, and your wife is Mega.
Mega, that's right.
You have one son.
That's right, sir.
I'm going to
Vian.
mess up it, Vian. Right.
Yeah.
I was definitely going to mess up the pronunciation again, even though you helped me out with before we started here. But so in 2016, 2017, you're thinking about opening your private physio practice. You're working for somebody. I know you talked about the smooth transition that you had because you actually talked with your employer about
Right.
your desire. When you and Mega were talking, what was the idea? What was the dream, the vision that you had for your own private practice?
So, you know, and again, I'm just talking from my heart on this. The vision or the idea was like, I wanted to have a practice. So, you know how if you're burnt by different people, like, you have worked different places, you like certain things and you don't like certain things, right? So my idea of opening the practice was to basically implement and set up everything properly and in a correct way that I hated, always hated as an employee. Um, so whether it was like paying, how to pay for my staff members, employees, what kind of system to set up, whether to practice just the modality based approach or to to depend more on the number of client visits versus developing a reputation with them and all of that. So anything that I hated working as an employee, so we fixed that. And the idea was to, when we have a practice, I want to have every single thing perfectly fit in there. So when I hire a new therapist or another therapist to work with us, they don't have the same experience what we had working at other places.
Yeah.
So that was one of the visions, and to kind of work at a develop a practice where my one vision was that you always heard of having a family doctor, a family dentist. Like nobody talks about having like a family physical therapy practice, right? So my one of these ideas was to kind of create an atmosphere and an environment where your current patients or your past patients can refer you their friends and family without any hesitation. Like develop that reputation with them, give them the results that they need. Don't be just like, for me, there's only two kind of people out there, right? If you want to be a good physical therapist, so there is no good term. You can either be great at something you do, or you can be average at something you do, right? And there is like a lot of difference between the two things. for me, I wanted to be great, and I want my practice to be great, and everybody who works there wanted to be great. So now I'm happy to say, like after 2.5 years of being in practice, we have actually achieved that target where, during the pandemic, we had to shut down our marketing to save on money and all of that. So since June till today, we stopped all the expense on the marketing. But despite of that, last year we had 40% growth, and that talks about it, right? How if your friends and family and your past patients are referring your clients without any marketing efforts, you know that you have achieved something and you established a rapport with them in the community.
So sounds like based on your previous employment experiences, you had a very good vision about what you wanted to create.
Right.
You went out and did that. The pandemic happened, and you were
Right.
amazingly resilient to the point you had 40% year-over-year growth from 2020 to 2019
Right.
because everybody was willing to come back in. And I think you and I talked about this, but you have a waiting list right now.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yep. So 3-week waiting list. You have 5 full-time physios.
That's right, sir. Yes.
As of right now, and you're in 1,700 square feet.
1,700. Yes.
Okay. And so everybody's schedule's full. You have a waiting list. You have this dream situation in the midst of the pandemic. I know you overcome a few other things as well. So you're in Canada. You're competing with essentially a free or very low cost
That's right.
healthcare system. What's the average plan of care look like for you in Canada?
So anywhere around like $400 to $500. Like if I be very specific, like around it would be like $440 around. So.
Okay. So you don't have the benefit of the $1,100 average plan of care that
Absolutely
we have
not.
in the US. So 440 to 500. And the other thing that you're battling is the cost of real estate is significantly higher than it is here in the US. And I think you and I were talking about this, but I think you're paying over $60 a square foot.
That's right.
Okay. And that's pretty much all of Edmonton
It's pretty,
and all of any Canadian city.
pretty standard. Little worse on the northern Alberta or side, like worse on the western side of the country.
Okay, so you have very high cost, you have low reimbursement, but you still have a waiting list, and you're
Yes.
doing fairly well. And our viewers, our listeners don't know this, but you actually flew from Edmonton to Harrisburg. We're in the same office. But so we didn't get noise feedback, you're about 20 feet away in another office right now. And you're actually looking at expanding and potentially tripling your square footage right now to fill that
That's
up
right.
as well. Great. So let's go back. It's now 2017. And I know you've shared this story on stage. You've shared this story at other events that we've done together and that you've been at. But you talked about this idea that you wanted to get started, hit the ground running, basically the rocket launch.
Yeah.
So can you share that again?
So the idea came, so the rocket launch concept came from the Mars orbital mission that India launched, and it was like I don't know, like probably the whole program costed them around $10 million if you convert that in like Indian rupees and all of that. So the concept came from there, and it was a pretty cool concept. So excuse me. So most of the ISRO and other aviation or people working in this field, when they launch a rocket or when they launch any of these spacecrafts, what they do is and I don't know how anybody never thought about that, but when a rocket enters into an orbit, it needs to enter the orbit. It needs a real push and a high combustion to throw it into the orbit, and then it can just come into that orbital circle. And I probably won't know the exact terminologies, but it just goes around in the circle by itself. But what also other people were doing was they were keeping that combustion engine on for the whole time. When the rocket was launched, it enters the orbit, the fuel is still burning, and throughout the time. When India launched this Mars orbital mission, they had a very small rocket because it was their first mission they were launching. So what they did was they had a really big challenge of how to save the cost, and how to, like, they only had a limited amount of fuel. With that limited amount of fuel, how to make sure, like, if they keep it like burning for the whole time, the rocket won't even reach half of the uh, distance. So what they came up with the idea that when the rocket would enter they timed it so well that when the rocket would enter the orbit, they would turn on the ignition, and they'll give up a sudden push that the rocket needs, and then they would turn off the ignition, and then the rocket would just keep flowing inside the orbit. And then again, when it comes into the circle at a particular point, they will again ignite it and start the combustion, and it would just throw it again. So that way they kind of kept circling, and a point came where they pushed it like a high combustion, and it enters into the moon orbit. So that the concept came from there, keeping. I wanted to have like a real rocket start where I don't have to wait for 36 months, as you said, to be profitable. And I was like looking for things. I've been before I started the practice, I spent 2 years in reading different, like I probably read 1100 or so research articles, lots of Harvard Business Review articles. You can get them online, and like lots of other articles on marketing and other stuff. So yeah, so that's from there the whole concept came from.
Yeah. So just to sum up, you knew you weren't going to have a lot of fuel to get started, but you were looking for some escape velocity and wanted to get to the point where you were profitable and growing as quickly as possible and getting a return on your investment.
That's right.
To pay off the $65,000 in credit cards because somebody broke into your practice looking for drugs.
That's right.
Great. So the one thing that really jumps out, and I remember where it definitely hit my radar that you were different as a practice owner in terms of your ability to implement quickly. Is I think we were on a call, or perhaps we were at an event, and I think I saw a picture of you doing a workshop. You had your Edmonton Oilers jersey on. If I remember right, there were 80 some people in the room. You had a huge conversion rate as well. And I asked you specifically, what did you do to promote the workshop? And you battled off maybe like 17 different things. And it was, you were going to Facebook groups in your community and promoting there. And I asked you, where did you get that from? And you said, well, I just did exactly what Carl said to do.
That's right.
So can you talk about how you think about that, how you take information and then implement it successfully so quickly, and what happens when it's not successful? How do you think through that, because you're growing?
Right. So again, I don't know where it came from, but I really I feel like I'm a good implementer, or how you say there can be in a business there are two kind of people. One is a visionary and other is an integrator.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm a good integrator, and I'll share a little thought with you. Again, like you, I read a lot of books and all. And one of my favorite leadership guy is John Maxwell. He runs the Maxwell Leading Leadership Institute. So I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he once said, I think it's there in one of his books too. So he once said there are three types of business owners out there, or three types of leaders, or three types of people. One, who make things happen. Second, who see things happen, who look at the things happening. Third is they just wonder like what the hell happened. So I just wanted to be the first one who would like take the initiative myself and make things happen. I don't want to wait and just let the things happen by themselves, and they may go in my favor, they may not go in my favor. And certainly I didn't want to be the one who would just keep wondering like, hey, how the things are happening by themselves. So that was the idea. Again, a lot of that goes to my preparation that I did before opening the practice. So yeah, every time I learn something, whatever I've learned in the last couple of days here in Harrisburg with you guys, spending time with you, Joe, Mitch, certainly have like a list of things that I need to go and implement now. Whatever I've learned from you. And again, like for me, when Carl says something, it just comes, right? When you are like, what do you call it? Like necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Right. So when you know that you don't have any other options, like you just have to. So it's with you, either you don't do anything and you just go broke, or you take the things in your hand and you just go and implement it. And I don't think it's hard to implement those things for me. Once I have a clear platform, when you know that I have like certain systems in place, I just need to put those pegs in place. Like, I learn something, what Carl says, what you guys says, and I'll come and just talk to my team. Hey, this is what I've learned, and I think if we implement this in our system, we can be in a really good position. And yeah, so I always just implemented that.
That's great. So you have 5 full-time physios today. How many other support staff do you have?
So 5 full-time PTs. I have 3 front staff, and that's about it.
Okay. And you do the marketing yourself, or you have somebody helping you out there?
I do it all myself.
Okay. Well, you did pretty well there. You talked about killer marketing and learning how to go direct to the consumer. You're also part of GrowthX. The question that I asked you, that I messaged you, was how would you describe that if you were describing it to one of your parents?
Yes.
I think you have a pretty good answer in terms of how you see it. Can you share on that a little bit?
Sure. So there is, and again, I don't know where I heard it from or where it came to my mind, but I feel as physical therapist, as a healthcare practitioner, as a clinician, like, nobody taught us the business. They always teach us how to be a good clinician in the schools. And for me, if I'm going into business, if I'm opening a clinic or a practice, and this is one of the biggest mistakes that I feel a lot of clinic owners, they do when they open a clinic, they basically decide, and you must have seen people talking about it all the time, that, hey, I'm planning to open my own practice. And for me, there is a difference between running a practice and running a business, right? Running a practice to me means being your own employee. Like, I was like, you're basically working 40, 60, 80 hours a week, paying yourself a salary, don't really have much time to work on the business. So, and again, the business is just like, somehow working, right? And you're just busy making money because people come with your name and all of that. But like, tomorrow, if I'm not there in the business, what's going to happen to my business? Right. So most of us, we make that mistake that we run it as a practice, not as a business. And what I feel is what Breakthrough helped us is they taught us how to run it as a business. And there are, if I were to go and explain my parents, that's exactly how I would explain them. That, hey, tell them the difference about running a practice and running a business. And so, and there are some different, like, some characteristics of a good business, right? One of them is like the management or the leadership. So, like, when somebody asked me about Breakthrough, I wouldn't call you guys like a marketing company, right? I don't know what you guys think about yourself as whether it's a marketing company or not. For me, it's a company that teaches us everything, or that teaches us how to run a business, right? So basically, there are different characteristics of a business. First one is, like, as a management person or as a key leadership in the role, I should have set goals for my business, right? So you guys have taught us how to set those goals, whether it's your big, hairy, audacious goal, 5-year highly achievable goal, 1-year highly achievable goal, or quarterly achievable goals, how to achieve that BHAG. Another thing is, personnel, like, how to have right people on the right seats in the business. Like, that's not part of marketing. That's basically a key characteristics of running a business. So I've learned a lot from you guys on that. Another aspect is how to have systems and processes in place. Like, if you don't have systems and processes in place, and you don't have the right personnel person in place, and you don't have any vision or any goals to achieve, there is no point of spending money in marketing. And that's like, then marketing part comes for me. After we have everything set up like that, then marketing plan comes in, and that's what I've learned from you guys. So there are these few characteristics. If I were to go and explain my parents, I would literally explain them that way, that this is what I've learned from you guys, and this is what you guys do.
Sounds like in the beginning you were talking about this self-employed leap over to business owner in terms of working in the business all the time as a clinician, and that's
Right.
what you meant by practice there. The other thing that you seemed to say was focus on business growth, not just marketing.
Not just marketing.
That if the foundation of the team and the systems are in place, the marketing doesn't really matter because it becomes wasted money.
Absolutely.
Great. So definitely appreciate that. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is I think that you have, and feel free to share as much of this as you want to. You don't have to share everything, but you have a tremendous work ethic. You're also a father. I know you came from not the easiest situation, right, in the world. So can you talk about where you got your work ethic from, where you got your drive, any experiences that you overcame growing up that really shape who you are as a practice owner today?
Sure. So growing up, so my dad, he was like an Indian Air Force. He was a military guy, so Indian Air Force officer. My mom is a teacher, so my dad, so my ancestral, like my grandfather and my dad, they all came from a small village on the northern part of India. And back in the days, like they didn't have the best of the facilities in there. So I remember my dad used to always talk about it, and he used to take us to the village and show us how far he has to walk just to get into the school. So like around 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers every single day, like going to the school in the morning and then coming back from the school. They were not allowed to just go straight home because they my granddad had a big family, so like 11 brothers and sisters, my dad. So he was supposed to, like, after leaving the school, walk 15 kilometers, go to the farm, get some stuff done there, and then go to the home and spend time with the family and eat food or whatnot. And I'm talking about the times when the electricity was probably used to come 3 times in a week. So there was like a quota system for the electricity distribution, and it's like late 50s and early 60s I'm talking about. So they've really seen some hardship, and and again, like being in a military family, so you learn a lot of discipline, right? So that's one thing. And my dad was posted on the northeast side of the country, closer to Bangladesh and China and all of that. So I grew up in that area. So all my schooling is all from there, nothing from northern part of India. So, but my dad used to make sure that every year during our summer breaks, he used to take time off from work, and he used to bring us to meet our grandparents and bring us to the village to see what a real life looks like. Because living in a military family, if you're an Air Force officer, you have people helping you out, you have people working for you and all of that, but you don't see the real life, right? So he used to make sure that and my maternal grandparents, they were in military too. So my maternal grandfather, he was also an Air Force officer. So kind of pretty similar concept there. So he used to make sure that we experience everything that a normal average person would experience. So we still had the farms and all, my uncles, they used to work in the farm, and we had so in Hindi, the guy who helps, a helper in the farms, who help the family out to do the chores done, it's called Hali.
Like a farm.
Farming, helper in the farming area. So my dad used to leave us with him. I was like, hey, why don't you go and help him out? And I don't remember his name anymore, but so he's like, hey, why don't you go help him out and learn some stuff? So he literally used to make us pick the cow dung. with our hands. So he had this different, like, shovels and scoops and stuff that he used to use. But so back in the days, you guys must have seen those things where to to like to burn the fire or to lit the fire, you need to have like cow dung cakes to put in there, right? So he taught us how to make cow dung cakes with our hands.
Got it.
So we did that all. So yeah, jumping on the cows and like go into the pond, jump over the cows and all of that. So we literally experienced that true life, and what an average or like a below average human being would. And that I feel like established a sense of it just keeps you grounded. I feel
Yeah.
like you never feel high-headed that you have achieved so much. Yeah.
It sounds like you're you said grounded or down to earth.
Yeah.
It's a humbling, right,
Totally.
action, and yeah, it's great. So, and I shared a couple stories with you here. Yeah, I have a friend down in Lancaster when he lives in Amish country, Dan Neff.
Yeah.
And when his children were growing up, to teach them humility, he had them work. I think it was for 1 or 2 weeks a summer on a tobacco farm, on a tobacco Amish farm, and he said that was a very good, life-changing experience for them. And even on our farm with the donkeys and horse and alpacas, and I was sharing this with you earlier, we'll have our children muck the stalls, just so they realize a little bit about
A little bit. Yeah.
in terms of work ethic and integrity and humility as well. So
And it's important for, like, if you want to be a good human being, because it's easy to make money, but it's difficult, I guess, to learn these values and all. And Chad, you'll be surprised to hear that like growing up again in the military family, so they're like military people, they're like very hardcore and very, very disciplined, so everything has to be in a perfect order. You won't believe, growing up, we every morning when you used to wake up, we had some duties assigned. So I had to iron my own like school dress, like wake up in the morning, take shower and everything. And you can't leave the house without ironing your own shirt and your pants. You can't wear like a crushed shirt. Like, it has to be well ironed. If you see a double crease on that, you have to go back and do it again. So that's one. We always had to polish our shoes. I don't know if you ever noticed that, even in here in Harrisburg when I'm here. So those things are so well imbibed in me now that every single morning, no matter what it is, like, and I'm like, so far out now from the family, but still every single morning I'll iron my own clothes. I'll polish my own shoes before I leave the house. And it's then every single day.
I can relate. My father was in the Marines. In the morning, if we would not get out of bed, my mom gave us one shot to get out of bed. If we would not get up, he would play Revelry, which is a military song, played on a bugle or a trumpet, to get us out of bed. And and I can relate to the shining my own shoes as well, which I always carry a kit with me to all of our events. Every Sunday night, my father would sit down like maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock, and he had 2 or 3 pairs of shoes that he would wear for the week, and he would I always consider
polish them.
Well, he taught us how to do it, but he would do, and he still does it. I mean, that it's ingrained, and he still gets up at 4:30 every morning and goes for a run, and just very disciplined. And I mean, he's in his late 60s now, and so I can definitely relate to that and appreciate that. Really admire your work ethic, and also how you're an amazing student in implementing.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. In terms of any pitfalls that you hit on as an owner in the last 2.5 or 3 years, that are coming to mind for you in terms of a challenge and overcoming that?
Yes, and again, like no matter how well you do things, you can't learn everything, right? And it's just certain thing that comes with time. One thing that, and I think me and you talked about it a little bit on day one, that um, that one thing that happened is with the business growing and all that, I think there was how to have a good balance between your business finances versus the personal finances is one area that I feel that I still need to learn a few things to how to kind of have a good balance between the two. Like, most of us as business owners, and like new business owners, I don't know the seasoned ones, but the new business owners, we treat our business checking account as our personal checking account, right? And we had that detailed conversation about it. So that's one area I think one area I think I need to work hard on. Like, not just like whenever you need money, just go and take the money out, like 25,000 check, just transfer it to the personal account and just use it. So that's, I think, that's a bad habit, and I think that needs to change.
Great. Yeah. So just to give everybody like an insider viewpoint, and if you're watching this, there was a whiteboard behind me with literally the notes from the session that I did with Deepak. Yeah, so thinking through like an income expense statement on the personal level, you should be able to do that with an income statement, and then also a balance sheet, which shows your assets and liabilities for you and your family, spouse, etc. Then for every business that you have, you should be running the same thing. And what I shared with Deepak is the key is that I found over time and through years of doing this, just to minimize the emotion and drama that can happen, especially when a business is doing really well or when a business is doing poorly in terms of performance. To minimize the drama at home, the key is to put it on a machine. So the one thing that I shared with Deepak, which came from The Richest Man in Babylon, which I believe by George S. Clayton, pretty famous book, and many financial advisors have written about the same concept, but we take 10% of all of our weekly income and then put it into a savings account, so that the tempt isn't there to write it. It looks like we're constantly more broke than the actual money that we have, because we're flowing this money over into a reserve account, and that allows us to expand existing clinics, to open up more clinics in the future, or buy equipment, whatever we need to do there to expand our ability to serve and impact our area. That reserve can drive that for us, and it keeps us stable also during a pandemic. So that was one, just to give you a quick inside tip for everybody that's listening. That was something that Deepak and I had covered. So right now you have a pretty profitable business that from what I see, you're about your margins 25-30%. Is that about right?
That's right, sir. That's right. Yeah.
Great. So you're running super efficient. You're in a low reimbursement market. You're in a high cost market. You've overcome quite a bit. What's the future hold for you in the next 12, 24, 36 months?
Wow. So now we max out the place in like 2 years time, right? For the last 6 months, we've been like, there's no further growth for us in that same location we are in right now. And the idea is to you got like basically a couple of options from here. Either we go and look for another practice to take over, or you go and open a new practice, or you find a space which is closer to your current space, so you don't lose the goodwill and move to a bigger location. Mm-hmm. So those are the three options, and we definitely want to expand further. But again, like if you would have asked me this question 2 years ago, Chad, and you probably would remember the answer that, like, okay, I wanted to have these many clinics in this much time. But I feel like, that's not a right way to do it. And over the years, I think that's the maturity that I've gained as a business owner, that like having the systems and processes in place, the right people in place, having your goals right, it's really really important. So you can have like 100 practices, but those 100 practices are not uh, you know they're like barely like you know meeting the ends, and you just have uh, you're just at break even point on those practices, and out of those 10 practices you're barely making $100,000 profit collectively. That's not a good way to run business. Instead, I can have like one practice where I can like make good profit, and have take the same system from that place and implement it at the next place. So that's what we're looking for. But that's in the next few months, I think the idea is to expand for sure. Whether it's going to a different location in a bigger space, or acquiring a practice, or opening a new practice. Just need to get some clarity on that.
Seems like doing things the right way is very
Is the
important to
key.
you.
Absolutely, because what they say is, and that your yesterday doesn't really guarantee your today or tomorrow. So what we did yesterday doesn't really give us it maybe shows you a good picture for today and tomorrow, but it cannot guarantee your today and tomorrow. So you still have to take the same system and use it the way you use it in the previous years, today and then again tomorrow.
Yeah. Two more questions for you. Moving forward, let's say you go and you expand the space to the 5,000 square feet or so, or you open another location. What is your confidence level at in terms of doing things the right way, getting the right team, planning for that space, doing the financial projections, and filling that space up with sound marketing? What can you speak to that?
So the confidence level is definitely high, because at least I have that confidence that I won't go under, because and that's one thing, Chad, that when you're making a decision, it's totally up to us whether we give ourselves a chance to fail, right? For me, if I don't give for me, failing is not an option, right? I just don't keep it as an option. For me, I only have one option, and that one option is to grow, right? To do things right, and I just want to grow, and I just have to figure out how to grow, how to take proper steps and necessary steps I need to grow. So yeah, so that's I'm pretty confident that even if we move to this new location, I'm still a little. I think me and you talked about that a little bit. That I'm still a little hesitant on in terms of the rent part and all of that, and the increasing liabilities and stuff. But apart from that, if somebody asks me on the business perspective, like how confident you are as a business owner moving to a bigger location and maximize that location, I'm pretty confident about that.
Excellent. Success. Final question for you. What was the last thing you read?
Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0.
The book that I just gave you?
The book that you gave me. I was reading it last night.
Okay, great. How about before that?
Honestly, in the last 2-3 months, I haven't really reading much, just because I told you, right? We've been so crazy busy at the clinic. I haven't really got time, but I've been listening to some of the podcasts. One of the podcasts that you shared with me about the burnout. So I don't remember the name of the guy, but that guy has really good podcasts.
Masters of Scale, Reid Hoffman.
Yes, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he talked about burnouts in the medical industry and all of that. So this guy has some really cool podcasts. So I've been listening to him quite a bit lately. I haven't been reading much though. But
yeah, right. I think I think we're talking about Masters of Scale. It's by Reid Hoffman that owns LinkedIn. It's a green cover.
I can tell you exactly what it is.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool. So anything else that you want to share with an owner that's listening? Maybe they're struggling in terms of words of wisdom, encouragement, anything that they should be focusing on as we come out of the pandemic and get to a new normal here?
Just wow.
Just
be.
So
sorry, go ahead.
If you're at an event and you're talking with an owner who, we all hit points in the entrepreneurship roller coaster, right, where we can be at a low point. So if you're talking with an owner at an event, what's something that you would typically say?
Yeah, I would say like, hey man, don't just wait for things to happen. You know, as an owner, it's your responsibility. Like just try and make things happen by yourself. Like, take the initiative and try and implement. You learn so many things every day, and everything teaches you something. Like even a little kid walking around teaches us something. Like I know from my son, I learned like a lot of humility from him, like the innocence and all of that. So every single thing teaches you something. How you take that thing and then goes and implement in your business is up to you. Like you can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars learning stuff, but if you're not implementing it, it's of no use, right? So I feel like whatever you learn every day, try and think it in a way that, hey, yesterday I learned this, like whether you listen to a podcast, so try and implement a little bit of that every day, and things would be much easier in life, I think, if you start to learn how to implement right stuff.
Very good.
Yeah.
Deepak Sharma, Primus Physiotherapy, Edmonton, Canada. Thank you very much for being here.
Always pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.